Peace, peace, peace. CO, CO, CO. What up, everybody? CO, 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 Holito. What up, everybody? Peace to everybody. I thank y'all for tuning in with me tonight. This is a special night. We are counting down to Carnival MardiGras time. This is Flambeau Fridays. Dife FEU Fridays. Fire Fridays. I plan to be on here at 8, but 9 was the time tonight. All right, so I'm going to be, delving into some of my maternal lineage ancestry with some of the things that I'm bringing today. A lot of it. So, this is about Louisiana Creole culture, Creoles culture, redbone culture, Melungeon culture, mulatto culture, Métis culture, all the misnomers and derivatives, NegroIndian, Creole indigenous culture. All right, I'm giving a nod of respect, honor and respect to my mother, my matriarch. So, peace to everybody in the chat. I got a lot of stuff that I'm going to share, and I'm going to try to do it within an hour, and maybe 2 at the most, but I'm going to try to do it within an hour. Peace to everybody. I appreciate y'all. So, this is me and my mother, my Creole indigenous mother. I love her and I give her honor and respect. I came from her womb. I have her mitochondrial DNA. So this is dedicated to my mother and my matriarchs, my maternal ancestry on both sides, my mama's side and my mama's daddy side. All right. Now, my mama's daddy side is really prevalent on the material I'm covering today with the Caddo Creoles. I'm going to go over the RedRiver, the Cane River, the waterways, and the mound builders, the Caddo Haddacho, the Caddo tribe. All right, tribal nation. So honor and respect to my ancestors. All right, so yes, the Red River people, the Cane River people, the Caddo Creoles of Louisiana and Tejas. And yes, those 2 main areas, right? Those 2 main areas. So let me pull this up. I already got everything ready. All I gotta do is go there. I'm going hard. This is dedicated to my mother. I love you, Mother. I love you. I appreciate you. And you paved the way for me. You allowed me to come here through your sacred portal to life here in the earth realm. Shout out to all my maternal ancestors. All right, so the premise, because I uploaded some pictures and we're going to go to some sites. I got some books, some book references. I do. Most definitely. Got some book references. We're going over the Red River in Louisiana. All right, the Red River, the original tribes, the mound builders there, the Red River, and how the Cane River is birthed from the Red River. I said the waterways. So we're going over mainly Louisiana Creole indigenous culture and a little bit of Texas Creole indigenous culture. All right. I uploaded a lot and it's taken a while, but I appreciate y'all tuning in. Everybody who's in the chat now and who will be in the chat or who will just be browsing. Those that support me and those that are nosy, those that are haters. Hey, here on my channel, you're going to get that Creole, Creolos, Melungeon, indigenous culture, rich culture and spirituality. You're going to get it on my channel. If you rock with me, cool. If you don't, get the fuck on. I'm coming on here in respect and showing reverence to my ancestors, and I'm going forward. Who rock with me? Who rock with me? All right. So, all right. So, if you are tuning in now, leading up to this, we've been leading up to Carnival, MardiGras. All right. It's all about the Louisiana culture, rich culture. My mother, her people come from the Louisiana Creole and indigenous culture. So I've been leading up to it, sharing different things about my Louisiana ancestry and Creole and indigenous peoples throughout Louisiana, and how our ancestors have celebrated spirituality and culture. I even touched on the diaspora, how we all celebrate Carnival and MardiGras. So you can look at those previous installments. Tonight is about my mother and her ancestors, the Caddo and the Creoles of Louisiana and Tejas. All right. Now I'm gonna do a different section about the South Carolina ones, the Chicora ones, but we're gonna focus on the Caddo Creoles tonight. All right. So I'm just gonna show like some brief little pictures, and then we're gonna go to some book sources and some sites. This is just gonna be the overview, right? All right. So, all right. As I said, yes, this is me. In this book, I've gone to the genealogy library numerous times over the years, and this was one of the books that I found, and it was really good, really insightful, had a lot of information. The Forgotten People, Cane Rivers, Creoles of Color. If you are under the illusion that all Creoles are high yellow, wake the fuck up. we come in an array of from the darkest brown to the lightest brown. So, shout out to my Creoles of color. We know that Creole, Creoles, Melungeon, Redbones, all these names are misnomers, but they are used to describe us, our ancestors, our peoples, our relations, okay? So, yes, this is the Creole flag. This is me. This is my mother, my matriarch. And this is her again, right here. And this is about the Belcher Mound. Now, this is about the Red River to Cane River journey, all right, to Caddo Creoles of Louisiana and Texas, all right. On some of my social media platforms, I added Tejas, Texas, Tejas, all right. So this is Flambeau Fridays. Flambeau Fridays. So this is a map of Louisiana, and I'm focusing on from this part of Texas into this part of Louisiana. Northwest Louisiana, North Louisiana. All right. We've been covering southern Louisiana, right? But we covering that Bossier City, Shreveport area, even to the from Poverty Point on westward. But we looking at the Red River and the Cane River, all right? Because the Red River, it does come from the west too. So, all right, so this is dedicated to my mother. All right, so there are many beautiful cities, towns, parishes, pieces of land, tribal nations in the state of Louisiana and parts of Texas. All right, we're going to be dealing with the Belcher Mound period, Haley, Mound Plantation, Byram Ferry, Battle, Crenshaw. We're gonna be dealing with these errors, okay? All right, they do mention over here historic Mississippian, Caddo, Plaquemine, Coles Creek, Troyville, Marksville, Chifuncta, Poverty Point, and Archaic. All right, but this is where we focusing on, right? Like northwestern Louisiana, right? And this is a cattle woman. She has some regalia on with this hairpiece. It's like a bow, and it has the ribbons that go down. Now, my mother, she used to make a smaller version of these growing up. We used to wear them in our hair. My mother is a consumer scientist. She was a home economics teacher. She's a seamstress. She's a mastress at crafting things, making things. She's made things from everybody's prom dresses. She's taught plenty of middle school and high schoolers, and even in her later teaching years, elementary, but mainly middle school and high school. She's taught many people how to cook and how to sew. She spent a lot of years dealing with the teenage parents and showing them life skills. She's a consumer scientist. She's an expert also in nutrition, etc. Her resume is long, okay? But I get some of my attributes from my mother, and I am so thankful. All right, so I gotta show my mama some love and respect. All right. So yes, she did craft some of these. They were on a smaller scale, and she was tapping into her ancestral regalia. All right. So, all right. Of course, I'm showing respect with the tobacco. Here we go. All right, Cane River, a 30-mile long water body, branches from the Red River in Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana. It originates north of the Natchitoches and flows roughly parallel to the Red River, eventually reconnecting downstream, all right, creating a distinct island area known as the Cane River Creole Community near Natchitoches. All right. Location. The split occurs in the Natchitoches Parish. So the Red River and the Cane River, they split, okay? But they are connected, right? So just like in other parts of the world, bodies of water connect our people, right? So the Cane River splits from the Red River just above the town of Natchitoches, near the Red River National Wildlife Refuge area. Refuge area, right? So these are depiction of mounds. Caddo, tribal nation, mound builders. All right. So I'll be showing, some more, but this is just a depiction of one of the cattle mound sites. All right. These are my mother's ancestors. Okay. So we have right here, they have some burial mounds. Oh, basically these are burial mounds. All right. And we're gonna dig deeper. This is just an overview because I got some books, some references, all of that. All right. And I may even share some oral tradition stories. All right. So this it says this is later, 1961, 1962, excavations of Mound C. Original map drawn by this person. All right, shout out to them. Hold up. Let me share my disclaimer. Let me share my disclaimer real quick, because I will be sharing some book sources, etc. I hope y'all doing all right tonight. I had to go to the grocery store and handle some things, so I'm a little late, but I'm still here. It's Flambeau Fridays. Flambeau Fridays. Defy Fridays for Fridays. Fire Fridays. Where we're bringing that fire, that fire, that rich Creole and indigenous culture. All right. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit education or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. All right. All right, so this is excavations of a cattle mound site. All right. This is a cemetery. Ancestral burial right here. All right. Shout out to the ancestors, right? This is Mound B. So this is Caddo and Forchi Maline. All right. And I may be mispronouncing that. Forgive me. All right, this is a cross section of Mound D facing north. All right. This is a view of Crenshaw with cemeteries found before 1969. This is the terrain map top. Okay, vacant mound center shown with a mound and a temple on the top. A small farmstead with several structures. All right, this is the temple mound right here. Because you have ceremonial mounds and you also have burial mounds. You have mounds for different reasons. Okay, so this is some old depictions, right? All right, so this is, of course, a Belcher mound with trench walls. All right, field post holes are burnt. Okay, so this is just a depiction of the Belcher Mounds, which is a Caddo mound building site, mound sacred ground site. Okay, land of my ancestors. Now my mother and her bloodline, have land that has been passed down after generation, and it is cattle land. Okay, my ancestors, a lot of them stayed with their land, and it was passed down and passed down and passed down. Okay. All right, this is the historic site, Belcher Mound, a cattle mound and village dating between approximately 1450 to 1650 AD, were located northeast of Belcher. The mound consisted of a series of platforms that contained houses or meeting places for the village leaders. The houses were burned periodically and capped with earth. The site probably was occupied when De Soto expedition crossed Caddo lands in 1542. Belcher Mound Site. The Belcher Mound Site, all right, is an archaeological site in Caddo Parish, Louisiana. It is located in the Red River Valley, 20 miles north of Shreveport, and about 1/2 mile east of the town of Belcher, Louisiana. It was excavated by C. Webb from 1959 to 1969. The site gives its name to a local phase of the Caddoing Mississippian culture. All right. But you know they predate the Mississippian culture. Okay. All right. The Belcher phase, which radiocarbon dates suggested lasted from 1400 to 1600 CE. But other sources look at them back in 900. Right, and we'll go over some things, and hopefully I get through most of the things that I want to share with y'all today. All right. So this is a map of Louisiana, and this is where the Belcher Mound site is. The Caddo Mound site is. Okay. All right, so we got another map. All right, which is on my thumbnail, right? This is the area that we focusing on in this part of Texas. All right. We focusing on these two areas right here. All right. And of course, we getting close to Carnival and MardiGras. We will focus more on some other areas. Like we've been focusing on the Baton Rouge, New Orleans area. All right. But we are focusing on specifically Northwest and parts of Texas. All right. And Poverty Point is also in North Louisiana. All right. All right. So I did read that part. Okay. The site is situated on the west bank of the Red River near the modern day town of Belcher, Louisiana. All right. I did read all the other things. All right. Is a prime example of a Caddoan civic ceremonial center, illustrating the social and political organization of the Caddo people. A detailed map of the excavation, including House 4 and the layout of the mounds, can be found in C. Webb's 1959 report on the site. For a broader view of the Caddoan area, the site sits in the lower Red River Valley within the northwestern region of Louisiana. All right. There are Creoles of color, mixtures of people all throughout Louisiana and its neighboring states. And remember, that whole middle of the map of the U.S. used to be the state of Louisiana. Okay. We went over that in a previous episode, but we can touch on it. Excuse me, later. All right, so I believe I did mention this about how the Cane River and the Red River. All right, it says the Cane River, a 30-mile long, 48 kilometers water body, branches from the Red River in Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana. It originates north of the Natchitoches and flows roughly parallel to the Red River, eventually reconnecting downstream, creating a distinct island area known as the Cane River Creole Community near Natchitoches. All right. I read this earlier, but the Cane River flows through Natchitoches, Melrose, and Natchez before returning to the Red River Basin. This region is known as the Cane River National Heritage Area, rich in cultural history. For detailed maps, you can search for the Cane River National Heritage Area map or Natchitoches Parish water maps provided by Cane River Waterway Commission. All right. So within the Cane River culture, Creole culture, you do have a Creole woman who was Creole indigenous, Marie Therese Coin, a formerly indentured servant, prisoner of war woman, her and her children, who created a successful agricultural community. Creoles of color have a mixture of French, Spanish, diasporan, I would say. They always try to throw African in there, but the diaspora will cover it because it's Caribbean tribal peoples, tribal nations, all right, that are a mixture in there too. And American Indian, they say Native American heritage, with a strong emphasis on family land ownership and often a distinct position between the misnomer black and white social categories. Centered on the Breville in Lower Natchitoches Parish, with significant sites including the Cane River Creole National Historic Historical Park and its plantations, the Oakland and the Magnolia plantations. All right. Just read that. All right. This is the overview. We about to get into some book sources. All right. The Caddo Nation and the Creoles of Cane River represent two distinct yet geographically overlapping because there's a mixture. Bloodlines are mixed. All right. They have roots, deep roots in the Red River Valley of Louisiana. Caddo people inhabited the region for over 1,000 years, establishing a complex agricultural society before forced removal in 1830s. They all did not leave. My ancestors did not leave. They stayed with their land, and it was passed down and passed down. All right. So we have the Cane River Creoles, or historically Franco diasporan, they say African misnomer community, founded in the late 18th century, blending French, Spanish, diasporan, misnomer African, and American Indian, Native American heritage. So Creoles of color, from the darkest brown to the lightest brown. This is what our people have mixtures of, okay? Caddo people, Red River Valley, okay? It was originally located in the lower Mississippi Valley. They settled in northwestern Louisiana, which is Arkansas, Tejas, and Oklahoma, with the Red River, the Hatinu, all right, serving as their primary trade route. So they did use the Red River for their trading route. This is how they traveled, okay, and did a lot of trade, etc. All right. Texarkana, that's like a part of Texas and Arkansas. So this whole little area. We have northwest Louisiana, part of Texas, and part of Arkansas. All right. And the Belcher phases. In the Great Bend area of the Red River, Lake Caddo archaeological sites are included in the contemporaneous Belcher and Texarkana phases. Texarkana phase sites occur on the Red River northwest of Texarkana to Arkansas, Oklahoma state lines, as well as on the lower Sulphur River. All right, while Belcher phase sites are distributed from about Fulton, Arkansas to below Shreveport, Louisiana, in that area, upstream from Texarkana phase, and the McCurtain phase represents another Lake Caddo archaeological complex. All right. The research examines the indigenous Caddo peoples' history and cultural practices in the Red River Valley, spanning over 12,000 years, with a focus on the period from 1300 to 1680 AD. It details the Caddo settlement patterns, their mounds, construction, agricultural practices, and social structures, highlighting their rural community systems and the significance of civic ceremonial centers. The paper also discusses the interactions and the dynamics between the Caddo and European settlers, illustrating the complexities of their heritage and continuous cultural identity amidst various socio-political changes and fucking challenges, right? The key takeaways are Caddo peoples have inhabited the Red River Valley for at least 12,000 years, shaping rich cultural heritage. The late Caddo period, AD 1300 to 1680, saw complex societies and mound building practices in the region. All right. I'm a descendant of mound builders. Okay. Key sites like Hatchel Mound were central to the Caddo civic life, with significant population and ceremonial activities. So here's some book sources, and we're gonna look at some of them. All right, there's some little book, some references, right? Because I like book references. I like something I can go to the genealogy library, put my hands on a book, or even pull up the PDF. I can look at that too. All right. So they have some book sources. So if y'all want to check these out, y'all can. Just some sources, some references. The development of the diasporic Creole culture or Afro Creole culture. It's a lot of books. Y'all can check them out. We're going to look at some sites. I don't think I'm going to be on here like 5 hours to look at each and every one of them. But they have some Creoles of Color in Baton Rouge, Cane Rivers Creoles of Color, Baton Rouge, The Forgotten People. That's that book. All right. Like this. All right. All right. Folk tradition. We're talking about traditions, culture, spirituality. All right. Folk tradition at the Creole Red River. So this is just one aspect, but I'm going to pull up some things. I'm just showing y'all. All right. All right. This is from Louisiana Tech. All right. I went to Grambling State University and I did go to summer school at Louisiana Tech. All right. So Louisiana Tech University. All right. So this is just, I'm going to read this and we're going to continue to go. Recognized by the National Park Service, the Cane River Creole National Historical Park area of Natchitoches, Louisiana, serves as a main intercultural backdrop of history as American, French, Spanish, and Native American traditions. You see how they put that in there? American, French, Spanish, and Native American traditions once occupied its banks. All right. Roosevelt's Federal Writers Project, a byproduct of the New Deal, documented new oral histories from the region. 19th century folklore from the Natchitoches Cane River area reveals that French, Cajun, and more importantly, diasporic misnomer African influences cast allegories for the spiritual journey they interpreted. Okay, so the paper uses NegroIndian oral origin traditions in places like Natchitoches and elsewhere in colonial America to argue on behalf of a time capsule hypothesis, where forgetting history happens when the past is obscured and future is apocalyptic. Preservation of landmark heritage sites through the Cane River's origin, folklore, architecture, and ecological history become a new esoteric medium. Reminiscent structures such as the famous Magnolia and Melrose plantations on the Cane River have preserved a different history that focuses on conservation and cooperation. For us to understand the history of Natchitoches, Louisiana, requires new perspective on historical memory and technological sublime topics, merging oral history and esotericism, all right? The hidden meanings, right? Into a ecological time machine of Natchitoches. Creole Catholics emerged from Louisiana's archdiocese, and misnomer Black Christians, NegroIndian Christians, became free by transforming mythic identities in their present moment to embrace creativity, literature, and technological acumen over their environment. I'm going to read this. All right. I'm going to read this and then we're going to continue because I like how they trying to come right here. All right. A new cultural economy on Louisiana's Cane River made epistemological interventions into why religious formations became the guiding force driving colonial diasporic NegroIndians, misnomer Africans, to assimilate into America. But remember, if you've been watching my channel, dark-skinned indigenous tribes were labeled as Negroes when these colonizers and explorers came here. Okay? Look at what I have talked about previously. All right? So, dark-skinned indigenous tribes, from the darkest to the lightest, all different hair types, from coarse, kinky hair to curly, wavy hair to straight hair, all shades, right? So, this is also focusing on, it says, to assimilate into America. Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas's Red River locations are an ecological reserve of Caddo Indian and Afro Creole folk culture. All right. So we focusing on the Red River locations. All right. The tribal nations that were on the Red River and the Cane River. That's what we focusing on. All right. Northwest Louisiana. Creole culture. We are on the precipice of Carnival, MardiGras. Our ancestors had all kinds of ceremonies, festivals, etc. Different times of the year. Our people were rich in traditions, culture, and spirituality. Hands down, right? So I love how they say this, that the Red River's locations are an ecological reserve of Caddo Indian and misnomer Afro Creole folk culture. In this person's interpretation of the Negro Indian identity formation in America. Okay, they turn to three authors who approaches the history to employ an idea, historical memory. All right, which this person uses to reiterate the theory of the time capsule hypothesis of mutual forgetting. How, they try to count out, the mulattoes, the Creoles, the Maroons, the Metis, all these derivatives, and I've showed y'all the caste system over and over again. They came up with all these different derivatives. If your mama is this, if your daddy is this, if you got this, you're called this. They came up with all these things, right? So we can focus on the true indigenous names of these people, of our relations, the true names. But some of these names are like terms of endearment. And when you say them in this day and time, you know who we're talking about. When you hear Creoles or Creoles, Mestizo peoples, Melungeon peoples, red bones, etc., you think about people that have a mixture, mulattoes that have a mixture. All right. And I have broken down those mixtures, right? So, okay, let's go. So it's talking about that book, The Forgotten People. All right. Cane River's Creoles of Color focuses on the restorative power of oral histories to keep legends alive. But what about documents? All right. This person writes that while some historical records on the history of Negro Indians in America, American Negro Indians, are sparse, they say. Other paths to getting information remain in social castes. We talked about the caste system, right? And I'll show it again. All right. That remain like Creoles who descended from diasporic French or Spanish ethnicity. Esotericists would admire how Natchitoches plantations like Melrose and churches represent the parish as a marked artificial modification to the natural environment. Because, Catholicism creeped in there, so you have churches and shit, right? Our ancestors wasn't fucking with that shit, right? But they did embrace it. Excuse me. I got deer outside my house. They always be going hard out there because they got a lot of area where they can run around. Anyway, all right, excuse me, y'all. All right, so it's talking about the churches. Okay, it says it is also where colonial diasporic indigenous peoples learn to tell origin stories. They was already telling origin stories and predict the future. Excuse me. All right, so this Gwendolyn Midlow Hall's Negro Indians in Colonial Louisiana, the development of Afro Creole culture, diasporic Creole culture in the 18th century gives credence to origin myths, cosmology, and new dialects stemming from years of diasporic migrations. This is why I say diasporic. Whenever they try to say Africa, I say diasporic because there were dark-skinned indigenous tribes throughout the diaspora, throughout the Caribbean. And they've been visiting us and we've been visiting them. All right. So along these waterways, etc., we've been blending in and mixing with them, right? Along with the colonizers, the French and the Spanish, etc., right? So it goes on to say, okay, these oral tradition stories, they call them origin myths, cosmology, and new dialects stemming from the years of diasporic migration, right? You notice it says migration. All right. It doesn't really say, it doesn't use another word. I like how it uses migration instead, right? So, okay, right here. Diasporic migration. Okay, this time capsule hypothesis where this person is examining the oral tradition stories of Creole indigenous peoples. All right. So it agrees that forgetting one's origin story is as pertinent to religion as it is to losing knowledge of your diasporic folk traditions, your spirituality and culture of your ancestors. Okay, it says were never open due to the suppression of knowledge in colonial America. So we know that they tried to suppress our ancestors' oral tradition stories, etc. But they told them in the dark, in secret, and they had secret ceremonies, etc. And then they had days where they could celebrate their heritage and culture and ceremonies, etc. Carnival and MardiGras, those are things that celebrate our ancestors' tradition, culture, rich history. All right. Festivals, ceremonies. All right. It was burning of the sugar cane, the camboule. All right. So, all right. So basically, this person is urging you to do not forget your ancestors' origin stories. Learn what they are. If you have some oral tradition stories from your ancestors, your parents, your grandparents, your uncles, your cousins, and you do some research looking at books. And then when you look at books, you do have to examine them, fact check, etc. Research. You can look at different perspectives. You can compare them, etc. Right? You can do that. You can compare them. All right. All right. So, all right. Here we go. It's saying that don't suppress the knowledge. Don't suppress the oral tradition stories of your ancestors. Celebrate their traditions and culture. It says each era exists in a moment of perpetual, because people try to forget, or some people try to make you forget. Okay. They try to make you forget the past, or they try to put a new narrative and shit, right? So it's talking about diasporic misnomer Afro Creole cultures existed. All right. They did exist in skeptical anticipation of prophecies like end time tribulations or natural calamities that destroy memories of the past. You know how sometimes these people try to fuck with nature to do these man-made catastrophes, natural disasters, fake natural. I won't say they fake natural disasters, but they are. But forced disasters to like erase a people or erase the artifacts, or when you hear about them burning shit, or them flooding shit out, like even with the fucked up shit that they did with Haiti, Haiti, and Louisiana, especially New Orleans, with the levees, etc. They try to wash away the original history, but the history, it lives in the blood, the DNA of the people, the descendants, right? You can't erase that shit, even though they try to force natural disasters. All right. Okay, they try to burn or flood and rebuild, etc. But the blood, the DNA is in the earth. And in this aspect, the rocks do cry out for real. Okay. But all right, let's continue. All right. So this person, Mr. Smith, conjuring culture, biblical formations of Negro Indian America combine supernatural and natural medicinal elements like indigenous medicine and hoodoo and voodoo and carondismo, all these different medicinal practices our ancestors had before the colonizers tried to capitalize on shit. And now you have these pharmacies today with a lot of synthetic shit, right? But they learned from our ancestors, our medicine people, on how to take the things of the earth, like herbs, roots, etc., barks, resins, etc., on how to heal a person. All right. So they do talk about that, and it says they did look at these 3 books. It becomes clear that Louisiana's Red River is a microcosm of a larger colonial enterprise that used the tradition of origin myths and dualist philosophy as a social agenda to affect rural and later urban communities. Christianity and its interactions, including Islam, were a part of that effort. So they're just basically saying how Abrahamic religions came in to try to erase your ancestors' indigenous culture, oral traditions. Because when Abrahamic religions came in, you had to basically forget about your ancestors' culture and just focus on the book that was crafted at the councils of Nicaea, etc., how they put all these books together, left some books out. Don't get me started about Abrahamic religions, because I can go there. But how that came in to smother the oral tradition stories of your ancestors, to make you forget who you are, who you came from, what blood, DNA, mitochondrial DNA is in your essence, in your being. They wanted you to forget it. All right. So they can reshape you. They try to make you forget shit so that they can take over. All right. So basically, this is why you have a lot of doomsday shit coming into play. This apocalypse type of shit. Oh, the end is near, so you better become, you better repent and become a Christian. Forget about your ancestors' spirituality and culture and traditions, in which our ancestors been living for hundreds of thousands of years. They even say millions of years, but we'll just say hundreds of thousands of years. And they've been evolving and thriving, etc. Basically, these newcomers got their truth. I would say, I won't even say their game, but they got their truth from our ancestors, right? And then they tried to, flip that shit. All right. So basically, this is what this person is saying, and this is just an excerpt, right? Excuse me. So I just wanted to show y'all, part of that. But we're gonna continue because we're gonna look at some books. We're gonna look at some information. All right, so yeah, this is what I just read. All right, so for over thousands of years, Caddo people inhabited the areas we now know as the Northwest Louisiana, East Texas, Southeast Oklahoma, and Southwest Arkansas. The major conduit linking the region together was the Red River, the Bahatinu. All right, the Red River. The Southern Caddo participated in a vast trade and social network and were highly esteemed by their Indian and European allies. It was the presence of the Caddo that first drew the French and Spanish interests into the region in the 18th century. Caddo peoples were able to build relationships and live in relative harmony with their European neighbors. All right. Not until after 1803, the year in which the United States illegally purchased the Louisiana Territory from France, in which it wasn't theirs to begin with. It belonged to NegroIndian tribes of Louisiana. All right. All right. So it says the Caddo began to understand the consequence of basically fucking with the colonizers, basically. Recognizing that their dominion here was, at an end. Not totally, because my ancestors stayed with their land and it was passed down from generation to generation. Okay. All right. So now some of the Caddos did reluctantly sign a land cession in 1835 that forced them to abandon the Red River and consolidate in Spanish Texas, finally coming to rest in Indian Territory in 1859. Since that time, the Caddo Nation of Oklahoma. There are some branches of Caddo people that still live in the state of Louisiana. Okay, but there's a Louisiana and parts of Texas. Okay, Texas, not Tejas. All right. It has been centered in Caddo County with a tribal complex near Binger, Oklahoma. Caddo people, however, never lost sight of their Red River homelands and have remained connected to those places that their ancestors were forced to leave behind. Okay, some of them left it behind. All right, the Caddo Nation Cultural Preservation Office has worked in recent years to build partnerships and garner support for tribal efforts to reconnect Caddo people with their ancestral past. Working in close consultation with the Caddo Reparation Committee and Advisory Group of 6 knowledgeable elders, cultural preservation officers have led efforts to visit ancestral sites, identify and document traditional cultural properties, address preservation and interpretation of sites and collections, and return that information to the Caddo people. So many Caddo and mounds populated the Red River in the Great Bend region of southwestern Arkansas, northeastern Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, and of course, northern Louisiana, that any area was often designated Mound City by white settlers, okay? Because there were mounds there built by our ancestors, okay? The first archaeological excavation of Caddoan Mound was conducted in Bowie County. All right, this was in the 1930s. Bowie County, Texas, believed to be the site of Nasonite Village. All right. And I did talk about this earlier, the interconnection. The Red River served as a shared yet distinct geographic anchor for both the Caddo and the Creoles. While the Caddo were indigenous to the region, the Creoles were too, because their parents and grandparents were from that land, mixed with diasporic peoples and the colonizers' blood too. All right. They developed through colonial era intersections of race, culture, and power, both contributing to the rich, multi-layered history of the Louisiana Red River region. All right, and we talked about this. All right, we talked about that already. This is the overview. Let's get to some other stuff. All right. But it does mention the Red River Creoles. Of course, it does mention, it says, the Caddo Nation and River Creoles represent distinct and historically intertwined cultures in the Red River Valley of Louisiana, Arkansas, Tejas, and Oklahoma. The Caddo indigenous inhabitants for over 1,000 years operated as a complex agricultural society. Meanwhile, Cane River Creoles emerged in the 18th century as a unique, often free, diasporic, Franco-Spanish, indigenous, diasporic population, a mixture. All right. Caddo people of the Red River territory and history historically lived in sedentary agricultural communities along the Red River, acting as a major trade conduits, right? Culture known for elaborate ceramics, basketry, and bow making. They were organized into confederacies, the Caddo the Natchitoches. All right. And then they showed the Caddo Confederacy. Yeah, right. Iskani, Nashita, Nasani, Caddo Hadacha, Yahash, Adai, Nakomo. All right. So, all right, we can visit that later too. This is an overview. And then we have El Camino Real de los Tecas National Historic Trail. So it's like the trail, all right? Cattle tribe locations in East Texas, Southwest Arkansas, and Northwestern Louisiana, 1687. It says the cattle originated in the lower Mississippi Valley and spread west along the river systems, the Red River and the Cane River, right? These important waterways, right, where they traveled to do trade, etc. Sometime between 700 and 800, they settled the area between Arkansas River and the middle reaches of the Red, Sabine, and Angelina. Okay, so let's look at a close-up of this. All right. So right up in here. All right, we got the Caddo Sulphur Rivers, also Nasoni, Natchitoches, Tekas, Hassanai, the Caddo Confederacy. All right. Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas. Cattle tribe locations. All right. We talked about that. All right. So we're going to get to the books and the sites. This is just an overview. I wanted y'all to see the overview. All right. All right. This shows the waterways. Natchitoches, from East Texas over here to Louisiana, Northwest Louisiana. The Caddo Nation. Shout out to the Caddo Nation. All right. The Great Seal of the Adai Caddo Indian Nation. All right. Those Caddo Creoles. Now, y'all know I love the spiritual, cultural aspects of my indigenous ancestry. So this is an oral tradition story about the Caddo snake woman distributes seeds. Okay. Now we have stories in other tribal nations in my bloodline. We have, stories about, now this one will be about Zacado. It's kind of like also Selu, the corn mother, the maize mother. All right. The maternal figure that showed the tribes how to do spiritual things and agricultural things. Okay. All right. So, but in this aspect, I'm gonna just read this oral tradition story. The snake woman distributes seeds. There is a great mother and a great father, just so you know. It says the great father gave the seeds of all growing things to the snake woman. He taught her how to plant the seeds and how to care for the green things. Now, in some instances, it's the other way around. But the woman is a visible image of this, right? So, all right. So you have the great mother and the great father. Okay. And they gave these seeds to the snake woman, which taught her how to plant the seeds and how to care for the green things that grew from them until they were ripe, and then how to prepare them for food. One time, when Snake Woman had more seeds than she could possibly care for, she decided to give some to the people. She called her 2 sons and asked them to help her carry the seeds. Each put a big bag full of seeds on his back and then traveled all over the world. And these are allegorical stories about agriculture and farming. Okay, just so you know. All right. Also in relations, basically. All right. So they put on this big bag full of seeds. All right. Then they traveled all over the world, giving 6 seeds to each kind of plant to every person. As Snake Woman gave each person the seeds, she told them that they must plant them. Okay. They must plant them and must care for the plants that grew from them. But must allow no one, especially children, to touch them or even point to them as they grew. She said that until the seeds were ripe, they belonged to her. It's like Mother Earth type of energy, all right? Mother Earth, the seeds, the womb of Earth, etc. It's all kind of analogies, allegorical stories to describe nature, right? What happens in nature, right? So, okay, then it says, if anyone gathered them too soon, like when they wasn't ripe, this is why our ancestors have ceremonies when they celebrate the harvest, etc. Green corn, ripe corn ceremonies. You got green corn, ripe corn ceremonies, etc. We celebrated harvests. We celebrated a lot of things that happen in nature. All right, so it says, of course, the little scare tactics. If you gathered these things too soon when they weren't ripe, then she would send a poisonous snake to bite whoever got them before the harvest. If you got the crops before the harvest, your punishment will be a poisonous snake will bite you. These are allegorical stories. Parents always tell their children what Snake Woman said, and so they are afraid to touch or go near any growing plants for fear a snake will come out and bite them. And we know snakes do hide in tall grass, etc. So, allegorical stories, right? So over here, it's traditionally Caddo women were the farmers, and they made decisions about what was planted, when it was harvested, and the preparation of food. Cattle bottles with a timber rattlesnake motif have been found buried with women and sometimes with corn residue in them. Okay, this French explorer, Henri Joutel, wrote in his journal that the cattle believed corn was sacred, which they're talking about maize, right? Before it says, okay, the cattle believed corn was sacred and wouldn't eat it before it had been blessed by the high priest or the medicine person, which is the Shanisi. All right. XINNESI. Okay. They believed if they ate it before it had been blessed, that they would be bitten by a venomous snake. So they just go over these different oral tradition stories. And this is from George Dorsey's book, Traditions of the Caddo, 1905. And we may look at that because I got some stuff to look at. This is an overview. All right. In Caddo or tradition story, we talk about the snake woman is a revered figure who received the seeds from the Great Father, teaching the cattle to plant, tend, and respect crops as a guardian of agriculture. In a lot of indigenous tribes, you'll see, and even in the esoteric world, you'll see a lot of the women figures are like a depiction of Mother Earth because Earth is fruitful and it is just so bountiful and it feeds us, it gives us nourishment, etc. All right. They are a lot of the women figures are depictions of Mother Earth or Grandmother Earth. All right. Represents the womb of life, basically. All right, you have the spiritual and the physical womb, the earthly womb. All right, as a guardian of agriculture, she protected young plants by threatening to send snakes to bite those who harvested too early. This legend highlights the cattle tradition of women as agriculturalists, farmers, etc. All right. So you have the stories about the three sisters, corns, beans, and squash. All right. The snake woman is she's central to the cattle agricultural history, overseeing the planting of crops like corn, sunflowers, and the three sisters. All right. So maize, sunflowers, and corn, beans, and squash, basically. Maize, beans, and squash. The symbolism. She represents the nurturing, all right, yet protective nature of the earth, ensuring the community respected the food source. Snake Woman's Garden, an interpretive garden located at the Caddo Mounds State Historical Site in Texas, Tejas. It was created to honor this story, featuring traditional plants and honoring the cultural knowledge she passed down. Okay, so this is talking about medicine, because in nature there's things to heal medicine, and then there are things that will poison you. All right. To cure a patient, they make a large fire, all right, and provide flutes and a feather fan. The instruments are manufactured sticks with notches, resembling a snake's rattle. This palillo, placed in a hollow bone upon a skin, makes a noise nothing less than devilish, they say. Before touching it, they drink their herbs boiled and covered with much foam and begin to perform their dance without moving from one spot, accompanied by the music of Inferno or Song of the, for only the Inferno will the discordant gibberish which the quack sets up find its like. Okay. This ceremony lasts from the mid-afternoon to nearly sunrise. So basically, this is a depiction of a healing ceremony, okay? The quack interpolates his song by applying his crew medicines. All right. So we're gonna go over this, and I love this spiritual oral tradition allegorical stories. And then I think I'm almost done with the overview, and we're gonna get into some book references, because this is about the Caddo Creoles of Louisiana. Around this time, Carnival, MardiGras, we are celebrating the culture, the rich culture of our ancestors. Our ancestors are a gumbo pot, a mixture of bloodlines that make up this unique Creole culture. Creoles of color, NegroIndians, Creoles of color, right? The Caddo people looked to the Shenesi for the medication or meditation and communication with their principal god, the Kadi. All right, Kadi Ayo, for religious leadership and decision making influence, and in leading certain special rites, including the first fruit or green corn rituals, harvest, and naming ceremonies. In essence, the Shanisi connected cattle life to the supernatural realm. In return, community members provided for Shanesi's needs in terms of food and shelter. At a less exalted level, each community had various lesser medicine people as well as konas, medicine men or women, who cured sickness and carried out daily rituals. So you see like a three-tier thing going on, right? Caddo peoples trace descent through the maternal, the mother's line, as was still reflected by kinship terms recorded as late as the early 1900s. They also recognized clans, kinship groups that traced their heritage to a common ancestor through the female line. The clans were named after an animal spirit, like a bison, bear, etc., or celestial phenomena, the sun, thunder, and were ranked, all right, some clans having a higher social status than others. Presumably, the leaders were members of the highest ranked clans. Marriage typically occurred between members of different clans. Beyond these meager characterizations, the cattle kinship system remains poorly misunderstood. Okay, it can be misunderstood, but it says the cattle kinship system remains understood. In some aspects, they say poorly understood in comparison to that of some tribes, because many elements of it were drastically, I guess, camouflaged, right? So the cattle are thought to be an extension of the woodland period peoples, the Forche, Maline, or Mossy Grove cultures, whose members were living in the area. Okay, cattle ritual and religion. In the late 17th century, the Hasinai were said to believe in a supreme god called the Kadi Ayo or Ayo Kadi Ame, sometimes translated as Captain of the Sky. All right. The Kadi Ayo was believed to be the creators of all things, and was held in great reverence. All right. So this is a contemporary view of one of the mounds. Okay, so this is in Oklahoma, though. All right, so some descendants whose ancestors were a part of the mound building culture came together for dancing and storytelling during the Caddo Culture Day at the Caddo Mounds State Historic Site. All right, this is in Texas. This is part of that eastern Texas. It's right next to northwest Louisiana. Excuse me. So today, it says, today, cattle culture lives on through their descendants who celebrate cattle culture through the teachings of songs, dances, stories, and traditional crafts. One of the most important preserved cattle dances is the turkey dance. This dance is performed in the afternoon and must be completed by sunset when turkeys come home to roost. The various songs of the turkey dance describe the accomplishments of cattle warriors. Many cattle artists produce a variety of traditional works, including pottery, regalia, jewelry, beadwork, etc. Archaeological excavations in the 1930s. We briefly touched on this. So this was an excavation near the High Temple Mound at the Caddo Mounds. All right. The Caddo Mounds were first recorded by professional archaeologists in the early 20th century, but it was not until 1939 that the first systematic excavations were conducted. The High Temple Mound was first of the three mounds to be excavated. Excavations of the Low Temple Mound, the Burial Mound, and portions of the surrounding village site were not conducted until the 1960s. So it took them a while to do this, right? Caddo Mounds. It's the borrow pit, the burial mound, the low platform mound, interpretive trail. All right. You have this road, Weeping Mary Road. This is the El Camino Real de las, what is it? Because they cut it off right there. Y'all doing all right in the chat, in the building? Let's see. Okay. We're gonna read that. El Camino Real de las Tejas. All right. That's what that is. All right. So let's go here. It says the borrow pit shown on the map is one of the many quarry pits where the cattle would have obtained the soil needed to build their mounds. All right, so right here, they do talk about the cattle and Mississippian culture, etc. It's just another aspect of it, right? And these are how my ancestors' houses looked. These grass houses, all right? These are not teepees, okay? All right, let's go. And I just showed y'all some of that. And this is one of the books, Traditions of the Caddo, collected under the auspices of this institution of Washington, George Dorsey. Okay, the women wear traditional dresses, shawls, and headdresses called dushtu. Men wear a ribbon shirt called the Naki Ka Son Showi. Both wear beaded moccasins or wahi. Patterns are passed down through generations. And like I said, my mother made a small version of these when I was growing up. Just tapping in to ancestral crafts. My mother is a master seamstress. Okay? She knew how to, make basically anything. And a lot of the regalia has spiritual significance. All right. So on this site, I do like to go to like some of the like different learning guides when I have researched like just over the years the different tribes that I knew about from oral tradition, and then as I learned and did more research in genealogy, I started looking at a lot of material, and they do have like the kid version where they break that shit down, the condensed basic version about okay the different tribal the different parts of the Confederacy, the different clans, the different things you learn about. Look at the simplified version of it, and then you can go back to looking at like the complex stuff. But that's how I learned a lot of stuff. So this is from uh the Caddo kids learning about, and I don't really like using the word kids, but the children's knowledge about Caddo culture and traditions. Okay, um so this branch of it operates in the traditional territory of the Caddo Adai Indians of Louisiana, Biloxi, Chitimacha Confederation, Chitimacha Tribe of Louisiana, Choctaw Nation, Coushatta Tribe, Four Winds, Cherokee Tribe, Muskogee Creek, Punta Chien Tribe, Tunica Biloxi Tribe, and the United Homa Nation. These indigenous people have a deep and profound connection to this land and have called it home, okay, long before us. Basically, they breaking down all of this. So, basically, in the state of Louisiana, they focus on these tribes. Okay, we did briefly talk about first fruits and harvest time, etc. ceremonies. The Caddo Mound site. This one is located in Cherokee County, west of Natchitoches or Nacogdoches. All right. We got El Camino Real de los Tejas National Historic Trail. Okay. I believe I did read this earlier. The Caddo people build mounds along the river to cover sacred sites and burial areas, and as platforms for buildings or special events. The largest sites were Gahagan and Mounds Plantation in Caddo Parish, and Crenshaw Mound in Miller County, Arkansas. Several smaller mounds like Haley and Belcher, all right, have also been found between Crenshaw and Mounds Plantation. Each site is roughly equidistant from the others, 75 miles along the river between each. The Creoles of Red River, particularly the Cane River Creole community in Louisiana. We are celebrating Creole, our rich culture. MardiGras, Carnival season. It usually came after the sugarcane harvest. All right. where they will burn the sugar cane, Camboulet, etc. So from the diaspora, all right, to the south, all right, diaspora to the Americas, and especially southwest and southeastern tribes, okay? All right, you have, this is where we get into the Creoles of color. The Creoles of the Red River, particularly the Cane River Creole community in Louisiana, are a distinct ethnic group with roots in French, Spanish, diasporic, misnomer African, and American Indian Caddo cultures. Okay? The Creoles of Red River. This is centered around the Albreville in Natchitoches Parish. This community emerged from the 18th century colonial traders and Jean de Couleur Libres, the free people of color. All right, the NegroIndians. All right, the free people of color, the Creoles, the Creole indigenous people, maintaining a unique landholding, and they did have Catholic heritage because Abrahamic religions were forced on our ancestors. Okay, and we did talk about Miss Marie, all right, and how she also was operating plantations, because it's like, again, taking our ancestors' land back and growing it, cropping it, tending to the land, agricultural shit to keep, everything up to par, right? Spiritually, mentally, physically, dealing with agricultural science. All right, we did talk about that. Bam. All right, the Adai, Dustiani, Natchitoches, Wachita, Yatasi cattle tribes accompany parts of northern and central Louisiana, while other Caddoan groups lived in other places like eastern Texas and part of Arkansas and a small portion of Oklahoma. All right. We talked about these errors: the Mounds Plantation, the Belcher, Haley, Crenshaw, Battle, Byram Ferry, and the Gahagan. And this is Mound Plantation 900 to 1200. Crenshaw 900 to 1200. And this is along, they do look at the riverway, the roadway, the waterways. All right, now this one is another cool map that I did like. And it deals with, just like the trails and waterways. Red River National Wildlife Refuge. All right, West Side, Downriver, Historic Natchitoches, etc. All right, you have a map of this important area. The Shreveport, Bossier City, Belcher area. Also up here, you do have the in Monroe area, like, the Wachita, etc. Over where Poverty Point is more northeastern Louisiana. We've been mainly focusing on northwestern Louisiana, the Red River and Cane River area, eastern Texas, and part of Arkansas. All right. Another map. Cane River National Heritage Area. So we looked at the Red River and the Cane River. They meet, they split, they meet up again, etc. Another map of Louisiana, 1812. All right, so it was illegally purchased, but it's just some history about it. The territory of Orleans in 1805. You have the Natchitoches, the Ouachita County, Spanish Tejas, Spanish Texas. This was neutral ground. You have, when you start going a little further south, you have the other tribes like the Appaloosas County, Appaloosa, the Attakapas, the Eshikes, etc. The Homa, La Fourche, Acadia County, etc. Iberville County, etc. So, all right. The Forgotten People, Cane River's Creoles of Color. We are celebrating Carnival, MardiGras. So I'm going over the Creoles of Color and to dispel the myths. When you just think that yellow people are Creoles, no, we have Creoles of color, all shades, from the darkest brown to the lightest. And it just means that we are a mixture of peoples, or you descend from a mixture of peoples, especially of the state of Louisiana. And the original Louisiana used to be the whole middle of the United States map. Okay? It's a good book source. And I threw in, okay, this is a classic piece that I will never get tired of fucking sharing because it is relevant for NegroIndians out there. All right. So let's go here. Let's see. All right, let's take a little break. Let's see. Does anybody have any comments or questions before I start looking at all the material that I'm about to go into today? Shout out to my ancestors. They already got their libations. How y'all doing tonight? Y'all doing all right? I appreciate y'all rocking with me. People that have been in and out, I've been seeing the numbers jump. I appreciate y'all. This is honor and reverence to my maternal ancestry, Creoles of Color of Louisiana, my mother, my matriarch. All respect to her. I have her on my thumbnail with me. Right. While I'm doing that sacred tobacco ceremony, honoring my mother. All right. Here we go. Now let me pull up some of the stuff that I wanted to share today in depth. Because we count down to Carnival, MardiGras. It is Flambeau Friday, Defy Friday for Fridays. Fire Fridays. And we count down to Carnival, MardiGras. All right, so I did want to show y'all the caste system again, just real quick. This is the caste system, all right, that they tried to put on us and give us all these derivatives, like, okay, okay, so if your parent was Espanol con Hindustan, or I won't even say Hindustan, or India, basically an indigenous person with a Spanish person. Mestizo, basically. That's what this is. All right. A brown indigenous person with a Spanish person creates a mestizo. A mestizo and a Spanish person creates a castizo. A castizo with a Spanish person, okay, Espanol. You have a Mora, a dark-skinned Negro Indian woman, and a Spanish person. You get a mulatto, okay? Y'all see this caste system? This is what they came up with, all right? These little different, color codes and shit, basically. We've gone over these. All right. I like her outfit, her regalia. It's pretty. So a Spanish person and a Mora, according to this, you have a mulatto. Okay, right here. A mulatta with a salatabas. You get a lobo right here, a chino, and a brown Indian woman. All right, you see all these different things. You get a Morisco, a Moor, a Spanish Moor, and a light-skinned Spanish person. You get this chino. They come up with all these derivatives. You get this mulatto with the Spanish person. You get a Morisco. All these different mixtures, right? Mulatta. Negra. Caribo. It says Negra. Cambujo. Albarazado. And you get an albarazado from a jibaro and a mulatta. They create this. And you have you look at all these mixtures, y'all. Y'all see all these mixtures? They had misnomers to describe our people. But our people had indigenous names from their indigenous heritage, the tribal nations that they were a part of, parts of the land. They called themselves something different in their own languages, okay? But to group them in these different caste systems, these labels, etc., this is basically it all. It is also a part of the Creole culture, because in the Creole culture, not only do we have indigenous, we have from the darkest to the lightest. We have diasporic Caribbean indigenous tribes mixed in there. We have French and Spanish mixed in there. And then other ones too. People just do your own genealogy. But this is just a depiction to show you the different caste systems of how they try to label our people. Give us all these labels, misnomers, etc. Right? All right, so I'm about to pull up the stuff. Oh, and let me show this one, and then we done with the caste system. We're going to look at this one. Sambo, I done shared this over and over again throughout the years, especially around NegroIndian History Month and Indigenous History Month. I share this over and over again, the caste system and how they show the mixtures of peoples. Now, this is an example of a Zombo. All right. A Negro Indian man with a mulatto woman makes a Zombo. That's what they said. This Sambo is a derogatory label for a person of diasporic descent. Okay, various tribal nations from the Caribbean and the Spanish. All right, and in the Spanish language, historically, it is a name in American English derived from a Spanish term for a person of Negro and American Indian, Native American ancestry. All right. So, yes. So they came up with all these little names, right? And look, they did him wrong, right? We can't even see his eyes. They really tried to be funny. Like, here's a little peek of it right here. They really tried to be funny. Whoever did this fucking painting, they tried to be funny. But this is a painting of a Negro Indian man and a mulatta, all right, who created a misnomer Zombo. All right, in essence, this is a Creolos, Mestizo, Melungeon, Redbone child, a mixed child of all of these different bloodlines, right? So this is just a depiction of how they have given our people other names besides the tribal nation names in their own tribal tongues, right? All right, so I'm about to go to some books and then we're gonna go hard. Peace to everybody. Y'all kind of quiet. You're real quiet today. What's going on with y'all? So we are remembering the forgotten people of the Red River, the Cane River in Northwest Louisiana. So all of Louisiana is celebrating Carnival, MardiGras right about now. We celebrate harvests and ceremonies and festivals, etc. Celebrate our culture, our food, etc. And I'm a descendant of a Louisiana Creole woman. I came from her womb, all right? And she's a Creole of color. She's a Creole indigenous woman. All right, so here we go. So we're gonna look at some mounds, the Mound City, cultures of the Red River, the Cane River Creoles. We're gonna look at the Tejas, the Texas waterways. And we're gonna do an overview of this. The first people of the Red River, our ancestors' oral tradition stories, folk traditions at the Creole Red River. Caddo mounds. All right. And we did look at the cattle traditions. I'm just trying to see where I want to start. Where did I want to start? All right. All right, so let's look at this. All right, we're giving honor and respect. All right. Honor and respect. Okay, so this, we had to come here. All right, so, all right. And I kind of shared a little bit of this. The Caddo Nation, the mounds, and the ceremonies. I went over briefly a ceremony, an oral tradition story, how they did a healing ceremony, basically. All right, talks about the Caddo culture was developed along the Red River between AD 900 and 1050. Some of this I read because I showed y'all this. This is why I wanted to do an overview. All right, you have Mounds Plantation, you have Crenshaw, you have Haley, Belcher area, Byram Ferry, Battle. Now, my mother's ancestors came from this area. All right. Some of them. All right. We'll just say some of them. The ones we focusing on today, right now. The Creoles of color, the indigenous peoples, the Caddo Creoles, right? All right. So the Caddo people built the mounds along the river to cover sacred sites and burial areas, and as platforms for buildings or special events. The largest cities were Gahagan and Mounds Plantation in Caddo Parish and Crenshaw Mound in Miller County, Arkansas. Several smaller mounds like Haley and Belcher have also been found between Crenshaw and the Mounds Plantation. Each site is roughly equal distance from the others, with 75 miles along the river between each. All right, so we did look at this earlier. I'm just giving y'all an overview because we got, excuse me, we got lots to cover. But I just want to show y'all some sources, Okay, sources. The Caddo Indians of Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation and Tourism, Louisiana Archaeological Survey and Antiquities Commission, 1978. Caddo Nation, NOLA Encyclopedia of Louisiana. All right. Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. Further reading and lesson plans. And I told you I rocks with all the teacher activity guides for a lot of the tribal nations that I knew about and that I found out about. I looked at the lesson plans and the activity guides on how to learn the words and what they mean. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I've looked at different things. And yes, I don't do it as much as I should, but I have done it throughout the years. Looked at, the different things, and I would say, I have briefed myself on it even more. Besides of the little bit of oral tradition that I knew before, but once I started digging into that genealogy, I look at the teacher activity guides and the beginner language classes. Yeah, I look at stuff like that to help me, know more about my ancestry. All right. So this is a good site. All right. Good site, right? We got that. And let's look at the three ways the Creole country, right? Let's look at this just briefly, right? We're gonna see what they got to say. All right. So y'all gotta excuse me. I be having hot flashes. It's real life over here. Excuse me. The reality is that Creoles and Cajuns, cowboys, and customers, shrimpers, and planters, really, all who make life and art out of this watery land, are threatened as their world is digitized, outsourced, and submerged, literally. Low-lying Louisiana, okay. Wow, okay. So let's go here. Let's get to the stuff that I just want to focus on because they trying to do some other shit. All right. But I kind of talked about this earlier. The river town of Natchitoches or Natchitoches. Natchitoches. All right. And I say Natchitoches. I do because I'm a Midwest girl. All right. But Natchitoches dates to 1714 when the French traders paddling up Red River from the Mississippi put down roots here, making it the oldest permanent settlement in the entire 828,000 square mile Louisiana illegal Louisiana purchase, right? So it just talks about from New Orleans, Rose Street, filigreed iron balconies, antique stores, galleries, etc. Cane River National Heritage Area, the Great Plantations, the Magnolia, the Oakland, the Melrose. The Red River is this twisting waterway. It's, it does branch off into the Cane River, etc. Right? We talked about that. So it's just a little overviews of stuff that I read earlier. All right. We did talk about Miss Marie, right? So it just gives you kind of like if you're gonna visit, basically. Yeah, St. Augustine's Catholic Church, Al Reveal, etc. We went over this. I'm just showing y'all. Also cemetery grounds with generations of the Matoyers, the Baltazars, the Roques. Creole identity is complex. All right. It is a part of Louisiana. It describes a person descended from a mix of French, Spanish, African, and African is the diasporic, and American Indian, Native Americans. It's the gumbo pot of all of that, right? So this is just, I'm just showing y'all a little overview. So we're going to go to some other stuff. They talk about food, etc., right? So the Melrose Plantation, founded by free people of color, misnomer, NegroIndians, 2 centuries ago. It brings this area's unusual multicultural legacy to life, right? And its 9 historic buildings highlight here the primitive style artworks painted by one-time Melrose cook Clementine Hunter. All right, so they talk about downtown Natchitoches. All right, for the city's signature meat pie, turnover of stuff with ground pork, beef, onion, oysters, crawfish, catfish, even alligator, etc. So rich culture, right? Rich. All right, so we looked at that. Let's go to the next one right here. All right, this one is a good one. The Red River Historian. All right, the Red River. This was how they traveled their waterways to trade, etc. To travel. All right. I want to make this bigger. All right. You see, this is in basically Spanish. This is a Caddo area. All right. So this is a testimony by this Francois Grappe about the French along the Red River in New Orleans Territory. All right. Look at these Cane River Creoles. These Creoles of color. All right. So these are what Negro Indian Creole people look like. A mixture of peoples. Like I said, various indigenous tribes, diasporic tribes, people from the Caribbean, the dark-skinned indigenous tribes there, and the Spanish and the French. All of that runs through the veins of these Cane River Creoles right here. Yeah. Let me test this out real quick. I should have did this a long time ago. Hey. Okay, it's a playback. Okay, so this is what Creoles of color. Okay, it's a playback. Okay, so this is what Creoles of color. All right, so Cane River Creole culture of Louisiana. And here is a Chickasaw free woman. Now, if you've done your genealogy, you may find several different tribal nations in your bloodline. Now, one of the Fob and Fops said that they were Chickasaw. And this is a Chickasaw free woman. Natchitoches, La French and Creole City. The French and Creole city of Natchitoches is the oldest colonial city in the illegal Louisiana Purchase. You have Fort Lassiez in Robeline, Louisiana. Fort Saint Jean Baptiste in Natchitoches. Saint Jean Baptiste, all right. Union Strategy in Indian Territory. Old House in Old Natchitoches. 1,000-word photograph. Texans squatting in Indian Territory. Fur trade. Red River Valley. Successful by trial. All right, let's look at this one right here. Union Strategy in Indian Territory. The slaves of these nations are quite numerous, the Seminoles being probably poorest in this species of property. Now, just like I was going over that caste system and the Creoles, you want to look at the city of Nacimiento with the Muskogos. All these different mixtures of peoples in the South, okay? Yeah, this is interesting. So it talks about The indentured servants or prisoners of war of these nations are quite numerous, the Seminoles being probably poorest in these species of property. The Choctaws, who live in the extreme southeast of the territory. Okay, and then it says in the Red River section on the Texas border are large slaveholders, successful and wealthy cotton planters, and are all segregationists or successionists. There are many characteristics of these slave element among the Indians, which renders it vastly superior to that of other sections. Okay, they were sections. Okay, that's what I get. It says, I have seen many runaways from the Cherokees and Creeks and have always remarked in them a self respect. So, Indian slaves in indentured servants that were Negro Indians that were of the Cherokee and the Creeks that have run away. They had self respect, it says, mainly quickness and intelligence, which the Missouri, that is a tribe, Missouri slaves, for instance, seldom possessed. Wow, interesting. This is owing doubtless in some degree, right? In some degree, to the more equal footing upon which the two races meet and mingle, but more probably to the greater latitude which border isolation was given. Most of the male adult slaves, indentured servants, prisoners of war own or have owned a gun. They have been injured or inured to many pursuits, such as hunting. And above all, it is the custom among them to have small patches of land to cultivate. Yeah, they supposed to have their own land. They have thus acquired property, such as stock, etc., and this gives them habits of self respect. Fucking right. Which only the pride of ownership can give a people. That they are brave. The stories are told and authenticated of the prowess of the runaways who have often encountered slave patrol and fought them successfully. Show as these Indian slaveholders, also there were Indian slaves and Indian slaveholders. It says, never take back a fugitive, but unalive in the event of recapture. It takes bold men to get away. They do it in scores. As I know from personal observation, by far the largest portion of these indentured servants, prisoners of war, are held by session half breeds, Creoles, mixtures of people in all tribes. Uh, they will make an excellent auxiliary force, and it is to be hoped that they will be armed as we move into Dixie. Okay. All right. So we looked at that. We're going to look at some more. All right. Let's go back here. All right. We're going to look at the Cane River Creoles. Okay, they were talking about during the Great Depression, etc. They were talking about Cane River in Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana. people of Cane and Red River bayous in the Natchitoches Parish are Creole, a mix of ethnicities that include, and y'all heard me say diasporic, the Caribbean. It says their ethnicities include African, Caribbean, Caddoan, Yatsee, Alabama, Cusada, Apache, Panis, and other tribes, French and Spanish ancestry. Their legacy is now enshrined in the Cane River Creole National Historic Area, just south of Natchitoches, where timbered post in ground homes along roads that wind around bayous stand next to French Creole plantation mansions. So y'all see, it says that the Red River and the Cane River peoples are a Creole, a mix of ethnicities, which include the misnomer African, Caribbean from the diaspora, Caddo tribes, Yatsee, Alabama, Cusada, Apache, Panis, and other tribes, French and Spanish ancestry. Their legacy is now enshrined in the Cane River Creole National Historic Area, just south of Natchitoches. All right. So they are documenting Cane River Creole culture of Louisiana. Creoles, Cajuns, and noted a distinction between the two cultures. All right, so this is from, they said, the Library of Congress. United States Department of Agriculture, Farm Security Administration, Washington, August 3rd, 1940. To whom it may concern, the bearer of this letter, Miss Marion Post, whose photograph and notarized signature appear below, is an official photographer for the United States Department of Agriculture, blah, blah, blah. So she was taking these pictures. Oh, she a Creole woman right here. Right here. It's a Creole woman. Daughter of a mulatto family returning home after fishing in the Cane River near Melrose, Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana. This is in Melrose, a juke joint in the 1930s, a mulatto's home. These are Creoles of color in Louisiana. All right, so we looked at that. All right, let's go to some more because I had a bunch that I want to share. All right, we looked at that one. Let's look at the Creole magazine. All right, let's put up the disclaimer again. Wait a minute. What happened? I was sharing my fucking screen. All right, here we go. All right. So here's my disclaimer again. All right, now we're going to look at the International Creole magazine. We're going to look at that. All right, if y'all want to support them, go support them. All right, Creole. Revisiting the Cane River Creoles of color. They put that misnomer black in there. Okay, so Negro Indians are Creoles. All right, who have all those mixtures that I just mentioned. So this is, I'm going to read this. It says, it was halfway deja vu as this person drove north on I-49 beyond Alexandria, Louisiana, and turned off at exit 119. But on the previous occasion, the day after this person's homegoing, all right, at this church, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's get to the meat and potatoes, right? It says heading for the Creole or the Negro Indian misnomer Black Creole enclave of Cloutierville, Louisiana, with its bewildering mix of light-skinned Black Creoles with some darker Creoles and whites thrown in for good measure. So they just talk about, the different skin tones, basically, and the church there, the St. Augustine Church, etc. Where they had wild pecan trees or pecan trees. All right. So I'm just showing y'all some of this because we'd be here all day if I just went hard on each page. But you have dark people of Creole. They called dark Creoles and light Creoles. You got the yellow ones, you got the red bone ones, and you got the dark, like the chestnut browns, etc. All right, so we are celebrating Carnival, MardiGras, Louisiana culture, and my mother is a Louisiana Caddo Creole woman, a Creole of color that has various ethnicities in her bloodline. So shout out to my mother, my matriarch. It's her with her cowgirl hat on and her just with her hair down. All right. And when my mama lets her hair grow, her hair is as long as mine or even longer. She tried to grow it out a couple of times. But this is my mother. I am giving homage, honor, and respect to my mother because we are in the season of honoring the Louisiana Creole culture during Carnival and MardiGras time. So yes, I have to give honor and respect to my mother and my mother's ancestry, my maternal side. All right, the RedRiver, Cane River Creoles of color, those Caddo Creoles, right? Some of our people were in Belcher, okay, in that whole Caddo parish. Various parts of Louisiana. All right. So we got to give a shout out to my mother, my matriarch, right? All right. Now back to the lecture at hand. So we're going to look at this other site right here. All right. Caddo social structure. El Camino Rio de los Tejas National Historic Trail. All right, it says the Caddo people trace their descent through their maternal line. They recognized and ranked clans with marriage typically occurring between members of different clans. Religious and political authority in historic Caddo communities rested in the hierarchy of key positions shared between the various affiliated communities. The Shenesi, all right, meaning Mr. Moon, inherited the position of spiritual leadership. The Caddo people looked to the Shenesi for meditation, communication with the spiritual realm, etc., with their supreme God or source of all things. The Caddo Creoles. All right. I did read this earlier. For religious leadership and decision-making influence, and in leading special rites such as first fruits, the harvest, and naming ceremonies. Shanisi performed the rituals that brought bountiful crops. Upon death, they were buried in temples or in burial mounds surrounded by lavish grave goods. The Shanisi did not rule alone. They consulted with other high-ranking men and women, sought consensus. They led by example rather than coercion, and their authority depended on their generosity. All right. By redistributing wealth, tributes, and food among their people, they created obligations and built loyalty. The Caddo held the position of principal headman of the community, which was also inherited from father to son. The Caddo made the important political decisions for the community, sponsored other major diplomatic ceremonies, led councils for war, raiding expeditions, and conducted the Calumet, the peace pipe ceremony with distinguished visitors. The Caddo sought the advice and assistance of a council of high-ranking elders, the Kanahas. All right. In prehistoric times, 800, 900, cattle centers boasted mounds for the burial of the elite and elaborate mortuary rituals, and as platforms for public buildings and structures used by the elite. The development of these were well-planned mound centers. They went hand in hand with the socially ranked positions within powerful cattle communities. These larger communities spread along the Red, Arkansas, Little, Ouachita, and Sabine rivers. All right. Divided by rank and status. Cattle society shared subsistence practices. Men broke the soil, but women planted the crops. Elder women controlled the dome-shaped lodges where members of several related families lived. They also controlled the fields. In the fall, cattlemen went to the prairies on foot to hunt bison, while the women dressed the meat and hides. Showitat means little boy in cattle. He was chief of the cattle people in the mid to late 1800s. And every time I see Showitat, I say that this is Kaba Kamene. It must be one of his ancestors. And I rocks with Hiawatha Kaba Kamene. But this looked like he's one of his ancestors. I say this every time. Every time. All right. So basically, all right, he was chief. All right. Showitat means little boy in cattle. He was the chief of the cattle people in the mid to late 1800s during the Civil War. He led an all-American Indian battalion for the Confederacy, but the tribal elders have said that Showitat was the one that led some cattle up into Kansas during the Civil War because they did not want to get involved in the white man's war. And you don't blame them. They didn't want to get caught up in the white man's war. That's Kaba Kamene's ancestor. I'm telling you. I don't know that to be a fact, but he looked like him. All right, this is the mound site. There's more than 1,200 years ago. All right. The Hasinai, a 397-acre site located in Cherokee County west of Natchitoches. All right. And this is the El Camino Real de los Tejas National Historic Trail. All right, so there's a lot of helpful information on here. All right, we're going to go back. We're going to look at, some more sites. Here's another one, Folk Life in Louisiana. Louisiana's living traditions. We are counting down to MardiGras Carnival. All right, so we are celebrating spirituality, culture, traditions, folk life. All right. So they do break down the different tribes, the great sovereign nation of the Chitimacha. All right. You have them. The Kushada tribe. The Jena band of the Choctaw Indians. The Tunica Biloxi tribe of Louisiana. The Adai Caddo Indians of Louisiana. The Adai were distant relatives of the Caddo people who occupied northwestern Louisiana until some of them were forced to cede their land to the U.S. government in 1835. A Spanish mission established near the Adai village in 1717 was briefly abandoned for 2 years. 2 years later, but the mission was reoccupied in 1721 with the founding of Nuestra Senora del Pilar de los Ades Presidio, placed to oppose the fort established by the French at Natchitoches in 1714. All right, recognized as the Adai Caddo Indians by the state of Louisiana. The tribe still resides in its ancestral location in rural Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana. A tribal cultural center and tribal headquarters are located in the Spanish Lake community not far from Los Ades State Historical Site. An intertribal powwow held annually in October brings together intertribal and cattle dance traditions. All right, you have the Biloxi Chitimacha Confederation. You have the Bayou Laforche Band, the Grand Kalu Dulac Band, Al Dijon Charles Band, Chata Apache tribe of Ebarb, and it talks about, in 1721, the Spanish founded Nuestra Senora del Pilar de los Adaos Presidio, a fort placed to oppose the French expansion west from Natchitoches. The fort was named by the Spanish and Mestizo Indian Spanish people. All right. Soldiers, many of whom married women from the local Caddo and Adai tribes. All right. Formerly enslaved Apache women. All right. And others, basically. Ebarb and Zwoli. All right, this was after the illegal Louisiana Purchase. The Choctaw Apache were recognized as a tribe by the state of Louisiana. And then they have American Indian, Creole, Hispanic traditions do remain strong. All right. Yes, they do have Mexican traditions like grinding corn by hand, tamales, etc. So Louisiana is a rich culture. You got diasporic indigenous tribes. You have American Indian tribes from the Americas. You have Spanish and French people. A mixture of all of that. So, okay. You have the Clifton Choctaw tribe of Louisiana. Four Winds Tribe, Louisiana Cherokee Confederacy. All right. So this says the Four Winds Tribe is made up of American Indian natives to the region Attakapas, who sought refuge in the ungoverned neutral strip. They were joined by Cherokee, Choctaw, and Muskogee Creek, who dropped off in western Louisiana during Indian removal in 1830s. The Confederation was recognized by the state of Louisiana in 1997. Cultural programming is a focus of the tribal community, which sponsors classes in tribal arts and hosts an annual powwow each fall. The tribe is located primarily in Vernon and Beauregard parishes. You have the Louisiana Choctaw tribe, the Pont Ocean Indian tribe. All right. Both sides of the bayou of Pontochennes that divides La Forche and Terrebonne parishes. The tribal community is closely related to the island Al-Dijon Charles Band, with whom many families share genealogical connections. Okay, so they name, okay, they even talk about the United Homo tribes. The Talimali Band of Appalachia, the Attakapas Ishak Nation, and the Grand Bayou community, a part of Texas, Southwest Louisiana. All right. Centered on Port Arthur, Texas, Tejas, Lake Charles, Louisiana. All right. It's located also by Grand Bayou in Paquemenes Parish, etc. You have the Choctaw tribe, which is in Sidell, Louisiana. Louisiana Choctaw Turtle Tribe. And then you do have some sources. Let's highlight the sources. It's all about Creole indigenous culture of Louisiana, especially. You have some in eastern Texas, Tejas, and a part of Arkansas. Excuse me, the neighboring, states. So, but this is mainly about the Creoles of color, the Negro Indian Creoles of color of Louisiana. We are celebrating Carnival and MardiGras, and I am ready. I'm counting down. Thank y'all for joining me this Fire Fridays, this Defy for Fridays Flambeau Fridays. I appreciate y'all. All right, so y'all see those sources. They got the Tunica Treasure, Coushatta Tribe of Louisiana, Tunica Treasure, the Peabody Museum and Collections of the Chitimacha Basketry Revival. They got Coushatta Cane Basketry, work of tribal hands, Southeastern Split Cane Basketry. All right, in Natchitoches, Louisiana. The Appalachia land between the rivers. All right. Chitimacha people, the land between the rivers, Indian tribal series, the Appalachian and over immigrant tribes on the Red River, Florida anthropologists. The Jenna Band of Choctaw, cane basketry traditions among the Chitimacha, the Jenna Band of Choctaw, the work of tribal hands, southeastern split cane basketry. Yeah, the Jenna Band, I talked about them. Indian tribes of the lower Mississippi Valley and adjacent coasts of the Gulf of America, or the Choctaw Gulf. They call it the Gulf of America or the Gulf of Mexico. Let's see. They got a lot of book sources. So if y'all like book sources, you can go here. A lot of good, information. Reconnecting the past and present, the Caddo people returned to the Red River Valley. My ancestors, they never left, for real. Oh, it won't let me go there. Ain't that? Okay. So they have things about the Indian mounds. Because I tried to click on one of A Promise from the Sun, the folk life traditions of Louisiana Indians. Let's see. Choctaw split cane bash. Making tamales in northwest Louisiana. All right, let's see. Let's see. Let's look at this real quick. All right, we did kind of look at the mounds, etc. How y'all doing in the chat? You crazy. Peace, Lou, 2 times. Yes. This is what we're going over if you're just tuning in. This is about the Red River and Cane River journey of the Caddo Creoles of Louisiana, especially northwest Louisiana, eastern Texas, all right, and parts of Arkansas. Some of my maternal ancestors are from the Caddo Creole. The Belcher area, where the Belcher mounds were. Some of the Caddo mounds were, or still are. Okay, it's my mother's ancestral homeland. My ancestors did not give up their land. It was passed down to them generation from generation. My mother's father's side, They pass that down each generation, okay? So that's all I'm going to leave y'all with on that. But I'm giving honor and respect to my matriarch, my mother. All right, the Creole of color, the Creole indigenous woman she is. All right, so let me look at these other sources. All right, let's pull them up. Okay, this is some of the culture, and I was telling y'all about how my mother made a small version of these bowls when I was growing up. But it's just showing a different culture, regalia, etc. So it has a Caddo dictionary, Caddo mounds, state historic. Let's look at dictionary real quick. Let's look. Let's see. Oh, they don't got none there. Well, I say nothing but tumbleweeds there. All right, so let's look at the mounds. Do they have the mounds? They don't even have the mounds right here. Okay, so let's get off of this site because clearly they don't got shit right now. All right, let's look at this one. I got some more with some books. Where is it? And y'all can check out Caddo Traditions by Dorsey. This is a book right here, book source right here. All right. George A. Dorsey, Traditions of the Caddo, Louisiana Anthology. Traditions of the Caddo. All right. All right, so we do have some oral tradition stories here about the origins of animals, allegorical stories to describe spiritual things and earthly to make you earthly understand, etc. So the origin of the medicine of women and men, etc. I'm gonna pick one thing to look at. The old woman who kept all the pecans. These are oral tradition stories. The woman who turned into a snake. Let's see. The buffalo woman. Why hawks have thin legs. A lot of oral tradition stories right here. So we have went over a lot. The Cane River, the Red River, and the Cane River. They also talk about the Brazos River in Texas. All right. Creation and early migrations. All right, so they go on. If you want to learn about the oral tradition stories, you can come here to this website, right? Some of these, it won't let me. I don't know why. It won't let me visit it. But I can view it on my phone. All right, so this is part of the Texas Caddo Ritual and Religion. We talked about this. Caddy Ao is Great Spirit, the creator, creatress. That was a ceremonial pipe for pipe ceremonies, tobacco ceremonies. Yeah, so this is just the culture, how our ancestors lived, etc. How they lived and survived. So I think I looked at all of this. I'm just doing basically an overview because there's so much stuff. And I gotta see. Let's see. Basically, I showed all this earlier. All right, the Caddo groups were organized into the Hasinai, the Caddo Hatacho, and the Natchitoches alliances, often called confederacies. All right, they took place in the Neches and Angelina River valleys in East Texas now today. The Hasinai comprised of the Hania and other groups, the Great Bend area of the Red River, the Caddo Hatacho, and in the vicinity of the French posts of Natchitoches, Louisiana, the Hasinai Caddo continued to live throughout the 1830s, etc. He talks about how some of them were forced to leave, but my ancestors stayed with their homeland. And it was passed down and passed down and passed down, right? So we read all of this stuff earlier, just on a different site. All right, so let me see. Let me see, is there anything else besides this? I'm going to go to the books. All right, we looked at that site. We looked at the kids. How you learn about the different things. All right, let's go back to his book. Let's see. So, does anybody have any comments or questions about the Creoles of color? From all shades to the darkest brown to the lightest brown. So, this is, let me go back. But this is the book, Traditions of the Caddo. And it has a lot of oral tradition stories. And I kind of did some overview earlier. Yes. So I've been on here almost 3 hours. Almost 3 fucking hours. But we are celebrating the Creoles of color, the NegroIndians. It's Carnival MardiGras time, and so I'm having Flambeau Fridays, Defy Fridays, Fun Fridays, Fire Fridays, every Friday leading up to the MardiGras Carnival celebration. I told y'all I was going to start doing more stuff on my YouTube channel, on my own podcast, doing more stuff, especially I haven't done general readings or forecasts in a minute. People get personal readings for that. So I haven't been doing general readings in a while. But yes, I still do life path sessions and your spirit astrology readings, indigenous astrology. I do all of that. If you want those specific things, let me know. You can look at the comment section below, the links. It has my Linktree link. It has all my social media platforms, my Linktree. It does have like a link to my PayPal or my Cash App for you to give a love offering to get a life path session, a reading, or a spirit astrology session dealing with your indigenous astrology. All right, versus your zodiac. So, of course, on my channel, you're going to get that gumbo pot of Negro Indian Creole culture. And I appreciate y'all. I'm closing out. Y'all have a good night. Enjoy. And I don't care about the Super Bowl. I don't give a fuck because the Chiefs ain't there. So whoever win. I did like a video last year, a podcast last year, and I said a red, white, and blue team is going to the Super Bowl. So it's looking like that red, white, and blue team is gonna win. You know, hey, that's what I say. So y'all have fun. Y'all be safe out there. Right now, I'm just showing my last little things. Of course, I have my store and one that I am working on right now. Let's go here. So, I do have my Shopify. It's still pending right now, but I did have my own design of Creoles, American culture, Negro Indian culture. I have shirts and mugs with this design that I crafted myself. And of course, I still have my other store with my other classic items. If y'all want to support, y'all can do that. I appreciate y'all. So on my link tree, you would just go to my link tree. There's my links. It's my social media, YouTube, Facebook, shop. And it's on Teespring. Let's go here. And this is my other store. It has my products. So if you want to support the oral collection, the Indigenous Honor Your Ancestors collection, or my signature logo collection, I appreciate y'all. Where did it go? Let's see. I appreciate y'all. Y'all support. I really do. And I'm just getting myself together and closing out. So this will be on my my Shopify coming soon. So it also has a link to my website if you want to look at other readings that I've done, etc. You can go there. So shout out to the Creoles of color, the Caddo Creoles, Negro Indians everywhere. It is MardiGras Carnival time, and I'm ready. I'm counting down. I'm out. Peace.
temps rouler. I hope everyone is having a fantastic time and enjoying all the festivities here tonight. RRJXI Tips, subscribe now. You won't regret staying informed and getting the latest updates, so go ahead and hit that button. Laissez le bon temps rouler. I hope everyone is having a fantastic time and enjoying all.
Bring me that.
Keep it going, Bourbon Street. Hey! All right, MardiGras. Yeah, dance with me.
It says the Gucci oral, the green. It says
Keep it going, Bourbon.
child.
Laissez le.
Another one here. I don't know where it is. I had another short that I did. Peace, 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 peace.